So in this segment, we're going to be kind of discussing the Tories. These are kind of diehard Tory voters who kind of don't understand much about politics, I'll be honest. Are trying to justify voting for the Conservatives, and it's pretty funny, I'll be honest. And, Labour need to be careful about trying to call, the too far gones who, these people are diehard Tories or just diehard against Labour. Like, they will vote the Tories, they'll vote Reform or UKIP or whatever. And Labour need to be careful about how much they push the vote to these voters, because regardless of what Labour offer, they will not vote for them. We saw Hillary Clinton make that mistake where she thought she could lose voters in the Rust Belt and then win kind of voters over in the Midwest or whatever the Republican areas were, and she failed miserably. And so Labour should really learn from that lesson as well. But let's get into these clips.
Come on, give me some Tory values. Don't give me this socialist lesson. I know you've got something in there for me, Keith. Give me some Tory values that people would vote for.
Well, it all comes down to creating money, a profit. If there's money in the economy created, people will be happy. All the services that you just mentioned will be paid for.
Just because there's, companies are doing well or whatever, the idea that the service will be paid for is just nonsense. The only way the service will be paid for properly is if the government decides to tax companies like the ones that are making over 900% profit. Compared to last year. If the government decides to tax them properly, then it's going to help fund public services. But you need an economy that's doing well. You need middle class people who are doing well. You need working class people who are doing well, and that money they will be taxed, and that money will go into public services and really help out. This idea that just because some people are making money, services will be funded is just nonsense.
Water companies. That woman who got 5.25 million quid. NatWest. All of this is angry stuff. But I mean, come on, who's taking control of any of this? People feel blimmin' angry at the moment, and I don't blame them.
Yes, no, I
people feel so angry, but they'll do nothing.
Agree, they are, and that's the problem. But the point I'm trying to make is that if Keir Starmer and his party get to power, if they're going to make things worse.
How can they make things worse than what they are now? Your interest rates are very high, inflation is very high. You've got just a cost of living crisis, a cost of greed crisis. You've got people who can't even afford to eat or heat their houses. I'm not gonna. I don't want to jinx the country, but how are things going to get worse under Starmer? Like, let's be honest now. Let's not be stupid.
And I think in 7 or 8 years' time, if he's still there,
that's not a reason to vote Tory. Is that you're not sure about Keir Starmer?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a reason where, it's kind of British mantra of it's better the devil you know.
Isn't. I mean, people got to vote for something, not just against the other one. We've had
Generally, people are voting against something and not for something. But, Labour do need to show their hand. But, from what I've seen of their cards, they're trash.
Loads of that.
No, I agree. What they've got to vote for is wealth creation. And when there's no money, because Blair, for example, inherited a booming economy, and then 13 years later he
didn't really inherit that much of a booming economy. I think what wasn't there like a crash in '95? The economy kind of picked up. It did pick up a booming economy. Really, if the economy is booming, why did they vote John Major out?
Bankrupted the country and almost bankrupted the world.
It's cap. I think under Labour, like our debt to GDP was like 30% or lower. It's now nearly 100%. So the idea that we were bankrupted, cap.
And we're still trying to get out of it. And on top of that, we had the recession, the pandemic, and now we had the Putin problem. And the government's been trying to support people financially due to that.
400 billion quid.
Honestly, right. So, the pandemic, Russian invasion of Ukraine, that's not the Tories' fault. They're trying to help people through it, but when it was Labour and the '08 crash, it was them bankrupting it. You can see the cognitive dissonance here. It's either both the fault of both governments or both the people who were in charge at the time, or it's the fault of kind of neither of them to an extent, because of the fact that the global crash was a global crash. It was it was a global problem. The UK got it worse because of our, kind of our debt situation we were in, along with the fact that we were heavily dependent on financial services. When the financial services crashed and we had to do massive bailouts, it obviously caused huge problems. But, the points that this caller made is absolute baloney. And the fact that the host barely pushed back on it is like, can we get some serious politics people on these channels? What's the point of having, these politics radio call-ins if you have people who are absolute jobbers who know very little about politics, who are just celebrities? Honestly, like, what's this brother's, credentials to really actually run the show?
you know, you might want to vote, you might not want Conservative anymore, but you wouldn't dare waste your vote on the Greens or the Liberals. And
again, it depends where you live. It's a different call, but you know, it depends on what seat you're in, who you would vote for.
And of course, with Conservative people, you know, with the people who are very staunch Labour, you do get a lot of, when they're socialist types.
There are no socialists on the front bench. There are not really any socialists in the Labour Party, I'll be honest. You know, the socialists struggle to get elected in the UK. Like, to get through the amount of scrutiny you'd have to get through, it's pretty difficult.
You know, you're Tories, you're awful people because you vote Tory.
So
it's not wrong.
Sorry to interrupt, Jane. Will you still vote Tory at the next election then?
I will, but very negatively.
What does that mean? Holding your nose?
I'm not with my whole heart in it.
Right.
I'm only voting. It's a vote that I don't vote that we don't get a Labour government.
What are you afraid of with the Labour government?
I just the past, you know.
What do you mean the past?
Past, you know, like well, if it's sort of like it's Jeremy Corbyn type.
He's not even in the party.
Very socialist.
Yeah, but he's not standing, Jeremy Corbyn.
He's not even a real socialist. I don't think he pushes that many socialist policies.
I mean, the beef of the Corbynistas in the Labour Party is that their politics, their policies, their ideas have been completely stamped on by Keir Starmer.
Yes, I know, but once Labour get back in, they might climb back up.
It's nonsense. Yeah, it's not going to happen. It didn't happen under Tony Blair, did it? You know, did these socialists magically appear and they just came over the hills and took over the party? It's absolute nonsense. This is what I mean. Like, Labour do need to be careful about chasing these kind of too far gone Tory voters, because regardless of how far to the right Labour move, they're not going to be able to win over certain people. We've got Rachel Reeves is seemingly idle in George Osborne, saying despite dire results in Selby and Somerton, winning Uxbridge has given the Tories hope and blah blah blah. He says hope this is more like 1992 rather than 97. This is a guy, George Osborne, who was a Remainer, was pushed out by the Tory party because of his beliefs and his policies and things like that. He's pushed out of the Tory party, and he still backs them. It's just mad. Like, imagine, like, you know, he set up this Northern powerhouse nonsense stuff, right? And the Tories won't even fund the North. So for this guy to still back the Tories at this point shows you, like, that there are certain voters who are just too far gone, and Labour trying to appeal to kind of certain Tory voters, it just won't work because it's never Labour for them. They will never back Labour, regardless of what they say or what they do. It's just tragic, honestly. But speaking of Rishi Sunak, this is pretty funny, this clip.
Been acting like it's a done deal. The people of Uxbridge just told all of them that it's not.
He won a safe seat by 500 votes. No, he kept the safe seat by 500 votes. He's saying it's not over yet. You know, he looks pretty animated and hyped up. It's very rare you see Sunak like this.
No one expected us to win here, but Steve's victory demonstrates.
It'd be like if England beat, like, San Marino, and it's like no one expected us to win here. It's like, no, bruv, like, you should be winning these. It's a safe seat.
That when confronted with the actual reality of the Labour Party, when there's an actual choice on a matter of substance at stake, people vote Conservative.
No, you won because you lied about ULEZ. Let's be honest now. But this is Rishi Sunak in delusion. But at least he's got a bit more energy and he's a bit more animated. Maybe because, you know, this will help him see off Boris Johnson, because Johnson can't claim I would have won that seat. But we can see just a bunch of diehard Tories who just love pain, because what more do the Tories offer apart from pain? Genuinely, like, the country is just absolutely collapsing. You know, you're seeing the death of a developed nation. You know, a country that really should be able to do it all and can do nothing. A situation where people are pulling out their own teeth, literally pulling out their own teeth because they can't access the dentist. I know it's a joke, like in The Simpsons, where they say the British brook of smiles, which we all have trash teeth, and they're probably not 100% wrong. But we live in a country where people pull out their own teeth because they can't afford to go to a dentist because there aren't enough NHS dentists. Like really, this is the country we live in, honestly. And these people will still vote for the people who hollowed out this country, who absolutely took it apart, and they will still vote because apparently Labour are socialist, even though, you know, Labour are barely centre-left. Barely centre-left. I give up. But I just wanted to add further to the election stuff. You know, they were moaning about kind of, what's it called, Oxford. You know, you got this guy, Paul Mason, and this is a message to centre-left people, right? The ones who kind of say, Corbynistas cry more and whatever, right? either you need left-wing people to vote for Labour for you to help win this election, and if you do believe you need left-wing people to vote, stop antagonising them, or just tell them to get lost and don't vote. Don't be like, finally, to my colleagues on the left who spent the past week attacking Starmer and telling voters Labour are just Tories instead of mobilising for 3 by-elections. Thanks for nothing. It's either you need people to vote, therefore stop antagonising them, or you want to continue to antagonise them and be happy when they don't vote. Be happy when you lose. Like, genuinely, I've seen this from the Corbyn people as well. When people moaned about Corbyn and they came up with attacks that some of the attacks did have substance. It said, "Oh, well, don't vote Labour, then go vote Tory." Don't be stupid. Like, you don't win an election by telling people to go support the other team. One of the stupidest things I've ever seen anyone do. You win an election through coalition building, and that's one of the things where people are kind of on the centre left have failed to understand, and I think people on the left wing failed to understand, is you have to build coalitions. You have to build a foundation of support, and if you don't do that, and if all you do is antagonise the other side like Paul Mason is doing here, you're going to struggle potentially to win. And I'm not talking about winning one election. You're going to win this one should be a formality, but the second election won't be. And if you lose that one, who are you going to blame at that point? When you don't do the policies people want, you don't change enough lives, and people just see you as the Tories but worse, or the Tories but meh, the Tories but boring. Why would they want to vote for you after a first term? Honestly, if you do not do enough, if you're constantly just going to push austerity, why would anyone care? And this is the most out of pocket clip I've seen from the BBC. Honestly, when they introduced what's the name, Keir Starmer.
Dina Campbell in coming up in just a second. But right now, what do you want to ask Nigel Farage about? Do you want to ask him about immigration? Do you want to ask him about ULEZ? Do you want to ask him about... Did I say Nigel Farage was coming? I think I introduced you as Nigel Farage. Easy mistake to make, I'm sure.
I don't know if he was doing a bit, like genuinely saying... thinking Keir Starmer as Nigel Farage is an easy mistake to make. I genuinely can't tell if he's doing a bit, but yeah, this Starmer's face is pretty funny. To be honest, it's like, what the hell? You can see it kind of... I wish they kind of panned to Starmer earlier, but it's just like, what? What is going on here? Genuinely, I just couldn't believe it. But, we move. But, don't antagonise. Don't antagonise people. If you antagonise people and expect them to vote for the people you support, you're going to lose, potentially, or you're going to have very narrow victories, and you're going to moan at people. Don't be that guy. Don't be the person who antagonises other people and expects them to vote for your side. But anyways, we'll wrap it up here.